It's episode 619 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm breaking down which players the Rangers should sell at the deadline if they're sellers, and taking a little look ahead at this Phillies series. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. It is Tuesday, June 21st. Your Rangers are 31-35. Still didn't play yesterday. They are tied now with the Angels for second place in the American League West, a virtual tie, 10 games behind the Astros in the division and 5 behind now Boston in that third wildcard spot. Boston's been on a tear lately, and they just overtook Tampa Bay for that third wildcard spot. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. And the best way you can help grow the show, help me out very personally. We're close to 900 subscribers on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Comment anything below. Now, before I get into today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all your parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Now, there's some changes that need to be made in this Rangers offense. It has been a little bit of a struggle recently. They've been putting up some runs, but they haven't been doing well enough to get the wins. And I do think that this Rangers offense can be a little bit more efficient, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more potent. There are now 4 guys in the lineup with OPSs over 740, which I feel like, 750 is about the benchmark. They're not quite there at 750, most of these guys. You got Jonah Heim at 757. You got Nathaniel Lowe at 744. He has been really bringing it up as of late. Same with Corey Seager at 745. He'll be up over that 750 mark pretty soon if he keeps on this tear that he's been on. Had 2 home runs, 1 home run in each of his last 2 games. And Adolis Garcia, the everyday leader, at 768. He's also the position player leader in WAR at 2.2. He has been absolutely magnificent as of late. But if you count Ezekiel Duran, his small sample size in 14 games, 57 plate appearances, which isn't nothing at this point, but he's got an OPS of 807. Still only has, he does have 2 walks, so he has doubled his total since I last looked at that, which is very encouraging. Would like to see him walk a little bit more, but he is not a problem on this offense. It's mostly been left field that's kind of been the black hole of this offense. Also, a little bit of a DH problem, which Sam Huff is now contributing to, which I like Sam Huff, and I was definitely wrong to be as low on him as I was and leave him off my top 30 prospects list. That was a big goof on my part. He is definitely back, should be in my top 10 prospects, has a hopefully long and fruitful future with the Rangers, but he has just not quite been himself. He has been a valuable player and half decent, but his OPS is way, way down. He has not been providing those extra base hits like he does. That is what a lot of his value in is, that he's a catcher and he's a pretty decent defensive catcher, but that he absolutely annihilates baseballs. He had 7 homers in 19 games at AAA this year. He is a guy who just absolutely mashes home runs wherever he is. Last year, in 61 games as a first base / DH between Rookie League, AA, and AAA, he had 16 homers in 61 games, just under 250 plate appearances. That's the Sam Huff the Rangers know and like very much. He had a 28 homer season in 2019 in 127 games. This is a guy who just mashes. That's a lot of his value, in that he provides a lot of homers. Now, he has been doing a better job of walking and not striking out a crazy amount. Still not great, but he's got 75 plate appearances under his belt at the big league level and 21 strikeouts and 4 walks. That is a little bit better than we have seen him do as of late. He's done a lot more walks lately, but he's mostly a singles hitter. He only has 1 home run and 2 doubles in 75 big league plate appearances this year. That's not who he is. He is a guy who mashes, and he needs to mash, and the singles are nice to up that batting average. I like that his on base is 320. That is encouraging and about where I would like it to be for him, but he's never going to be that high an on-base guy, and you know what? That's okay. If he can learn to be a high on-base guy while having that power, that is a whole lot of added value, but I think for right now, since he's not playing every day, I think it'd be more valuable to send him to AAA so he can work on, having that high on base, being a more patient hitter while still being able to be aggressive when he needs to. I mean, Nathaniel Lowe has gone a little bit in the opposite direction of that this year, but he's still providing a whole lot of power. Like he was the guy who was kind of the inverse of the Sam Huffs, of the guys who just absolutely swing very freely, strike out a crap ton, and hit a crap ton of bombs. Nathaniel Lowe I don't know if he has quite the raw power that Sam Huff does, because Sam Huff's got like top of the scale, hit like 800-foot home runs to Mars kind of power. And Nathaniel Lowe, he's definitely got, I'd say, double plus raw power. It's hard to know because he doesn't really get into him all that much, but he's getting into him a whole lot more. And offensively, he's providing a whole lot of value there. Granted, I would like to see him more at DH once Mitch Garver's arm heals up for any kind of throwing. Well, I don't know if he's gonna have like a level of throwing that's comfortable for him to be a first baseman, but not catcher. I don't know if there's some kind of like, I don't know, designator of like elbow strength for what he's dealing with that you would put him at first base, but I'd like to see him at first base more and Nathaniel Lowe DHing more, because he is literally the bottom 1% of outs above average defensively at first base. Now, the offense has been there to warrant being a first baseman, and he is not the problem with his offense. And right now, the problem with his offense has been a lot of Cole Calhoun. I don't know why he keeps hitting so high in the order. He should be, honestly, in the 9-hole with how bad he's been over the last 2 weeks. In that 10-game stretch, he's got 43 plate appearances, has a slash line of 150, on base 186, slugging 200. In the last 7 games, it's been even worse. Only 2 hits in 19 plate appearances, and neither of them were extra base hits. He's got 4 strikeouts and 1 walk in that time, an OPS of 328, an OPS of 386 in the last 14 days, and an OPS in the last 28 days. You want to go back that far. He only has 1 home run in the last 28 days. After that torrid start to May, he has not been anywhere close to that in the month of June. It has been rough sledding for him. In the month of May, he had 23 games, over 100 plate appearances, where he had an OPS over 1,000, 7 home runs in that span, also 5 doubles and a triple. In June, 14 games, not great. 3 doubles. Those are the only extra base hits that he's got. He's got 16 strikeouts to 4 walks and an OPS of 397. That's just not going to cut it. Granted, his defense is more valuable in left field than really any of the other options that are really out there at this point on this Rangers bench that are going to be playing every day left field. He's a little bit better than Brad Miller, and I don't know if he's better than Zach Rex. Maybe Zach Rex is about on that level, but still, offensively, he is not providing a lot to the at the plate that the Rangers need him to. He doesn't have a multi-year deal like Brad Miller does, which was a little surprising that they invested a little bit more in Brad Miller than him, and Brad Miller's it feels like he's barely playing these days, which, again, Brad Miller is another guy who, if you didn't have to get Mitch Garver's bat in there every day at DH, I wouldn't mind seeing more Brad Miller at first base, because I think his defense is better there than Nathaniel Lowe's, which, granted, at this point, there's a lot of people better defensively than Nathaniel Lowe. But I'm not trying to slam Lowe. He's a DH, and that's fine, because he would be a darn good one, because he's providing a whole lot of offense, unlike what the Rangers have done in left field. And you know who I think might be the option in left field? Josh Smith. Because the Rangers, one of their problems is just overall offensive production is way, way down. They are 23rd in Major League Baseball in team weighted on base average, or WOBA, at 299. They're behind the Reds and just ahead of the Orioles. That's not great. In weighted runs created plus, they're 21st, so a little bit better than that. But still not great. And if you want to look at just the basic overall stats, OPS, they are 23rd in between the Reds and the Orioles at 681 as a team. That's not great. The one thing they are good at offensively, besides on the bases, if you count that as offensively instead of it being its own thing, they're top 10 in home runs. They have the 8th most home runs in all of Major League Baseball with 82, behind the Angels and just above the Diamondbacks. But the reason those aren't translated runs is because his team on base is 294, which is 27th in Major League Baseball. That's not good enough. And I have a guy in mind who I think might be able to help the Rangers out with providing offense in left field and maybe a little bit of defense that might be on Cole Calhoun's level. And I'm getting to that and a little bit about who I think the Rangers should trade if they become sellers at the deadline. But first, this episode is brought to you by rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why would you endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning while the person who's asking you those questions behind the counter chooses the parts only their warehouse happens to carry? You've got computers access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. They can save you time and money when you're using Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices, they're reliably low for every single person, and they're the same for every single person. They've got everything you need. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. One live NBA draft show is not enough for Locked On. The entire NBA channel is going live on NBA draft night. So if you have a favorite NBA team, make sure to check out and subscribe to their Locked On YouTube channel so that you get notified when they go live on NBA draft night. Now, let's take a look at who I think could fix this Ranger offense. You might know who I'm talking about. That's right, I'm talking about a guy who was really great in a small sample size with the Rangers, and that on-base problem would not be a problem for this guy. I'm talking about Joshua H. Smith. The guy had a .588 on-base percentage in his very, very short 5-game stint with the Rangers this year, and for his career in the minor leagues, he has been an on-base machine. Where we go? Let's see. A .370 on-base percentage this year so far in AAA, and .429 the year before in several combined levels between the Rangers and the Yankees, and .450 in 33 games in his first pro appearance as a 21-year-old in 2019. This guy's an on-base machine, and he's got the versatility to play the outfield. He's played a little bit of center field, and in his first rehab game against the Space Cowboys, which, I hate to give Houston credit for anything, but the Sugarland Space Cowboys is just absolutely fantastic, one of the better minor league names out there. But he played third base in his first minor league rehab start. I want to see him in left field. I want to see him play left field. I don't want him to try and wrestle this job away from Ezekiel Duran. Since he's played more left field, that's why I would feel more confident putting him in left field than Ezekiel Duran, because you don't want either of these guys really learning on the fly how to play the outfield at the major league level. That's not something you want when you're a team that is trying to compete. But speaking of competing, if the Rangers happen to keep falling the way that they have and wasting these opportunities in June, they might be sellers at the deadline. Let's look at who they should sell at the deadline. I know I just talked about how bad he was for felt like 10 minutes, but I think Cole Calhoun might be the option. I don't know what you're going to get from him. You definitely need him to go on a little bit of a hot streak, but you've got that left field and long term open. He's 34 years old. They do have a team option for next year. I don't necessarily think he is in their long-term plans. They want to take a flyer. We saw a great month from him. We've seen, one horrible month from him, one great month, and so far another half bad month. I guess it's more than halfway done. We're in June 21st. So it might be a huge hit or miss season with Cole Calhoun. See the Rangers, what they can get for him. He's not part of your long-term plans. When you're in this kind of middle range, just about to go into full contender territory, they're not quite there, but they want to still be competitive and scrappy this year. So you don't want to sell off any main pieces. You don't want to just lump an arm off and kind of hamstring yourself there. But I think he might be the most likely one to be dealt. Actually, scratch that. I think the one most likely to be dealt is the guy who has been the most surprising this year. Well, actually, I don't know about Brock Burke might be more surprising, but no. Brock Burke at least had some potential more recently than Matt Moore, who has been an absolute revelation. It would hurt to give him up. He has been that good for the Rangers this year in a kind of hybrid multi-inning / high leverage relief role. A .237 ERA in 20 games, just over 30 innings, and 38 strikeouts. His ERA plus is 164. The guy has been nails for the Rangers whenever they need him. That new curveball is working wonders for him. He has been so valuable to this Rangers pen, and he's 33 years old. I think he's just on a 1-year deal last time that I checked. But every team can always use more relievers. Every contending team can use more relievers. Now there are more contending teams than ever before. But actually, he is a free agent after this year. So I think the Rangers should sell high on him. I think it's going to hurt them for trying to contend for the back half of this year. But if they do decide to be contenders, no matter who they trade off, it's going to hurt them. So if you're going to trade off somebody who's not going to hurt your long-term plans, then I think Matt Moore might be the best option. The other guys who I think you might want to consider, Dennis Santana. I know the Rangers have control for him for a while, and same with Joe Barlow. Both those guys are doing very, very well. I don't know how much it depends on how much you trust what they're doing now to hold up. Relievers are always finicky. They are even the best relievers can go year to year sometimes, and they'll be like just otherworldly and then fall off a cliff the next year. So if you really think Joe Barlow is this good, then you keep him. You keep him, and you keep him as your closer until somebody unseats him, and then you put him in high leverage relief roles after that. Dennis Santana has been good in his very specific roles. He's got a 1.38 ERA in 26 innings. He has been just super, super valuable for the Rangers. But again, do you trust him to continue to be this good, or are you going to get a whole lot of value in selling a guy with multiple years of control at the deadline, trading him to a contender who will be more desperate with more slots open and more opportunities to get into that postseason? I think he could help any bullpen in baseball, either of these guys. So it just depends on how much you trust what they're doing now to hold up. Other guys who I think might be in contention, Brock Burke, I don't want to give up on that guy. He has been by far the best Rangers reliever, and I know Joe Barlow is a closer, but Brock Burke has been more valuable. I think even Matt Moore has been a little bit more valuable. Maybe even Dennis Santana, a little bit more valuable. But Brock Burke has been absolutely nails. If you're thinking about making him a starter, then you definitely don't want to sell him now while he's still a reliever. He, I think, might have that in there, depending on how open the final spot in this rotation is in a couple months or heading into camp next year. I think he could be in competition for that, but I don't think they want to switch his role mid-season. We saw it kind of work with Taylor Hearn at the back end of last year, but it has not worked with him this year. I would have thought it would have been kind of the opposite, that Hearn would struggle going mid-season into a starter's role, even though they were more gentle about easing him in, than this year, him just like from the offseason, knowing that he was going to be a starting pitcher. And even though he had a shorter spring training, then he still had enough time as of now to like be in that role, and has still continued to struggle. So those are the main options. I think Brad Miller would be a really interesting one. I don't know how much value he's got. He hasn't done a whole lot since that first month, since he came back off the IL. He's been a very inconsistent in terms of getting playtime, and when he hasn't really made a huge impact. He's fine, and he's a pretty solid bench bat for that any team could really use. Plays all those different positions, plays the outfield, plays first base, plays third base, allegedly plays shortstop, but really he's just kind of a DH and first base kind of guy who can masquerade in some of those corner spots for a limited amount of time. I bet the Phillies could really use him right now, because his defense is better at third base than what they're rolling out there right now. But we're going to take a quick break, and speaking of this Phillies team, his former team, we're going to look at what they've been doing and a little bit about how the Rangers have squandered this month of June, and how many opportunities they have for the rest of this month of June. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Our friends at Built Bar are always coming out with amazing new flavors. Well, this time, Built Bar has just truly outdone themselves with a new mud pie flavor. And for the first time ever, Built is introducing the new mud pie flavor in both mud pie bar and mud pie puff. I have tasted them. They are so good if you love chocolate. This thing is just covered in chocolate. It tastes like those delicious mud pies. It tastes like you got little, cookies and cream kind of action on there, and just rich with chocolate. It's so fluffy. It's so freaking good. You will want to try it. What's great about Built Bar is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, provides a ton of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and it's good for you. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Now, let's take a look at this Phillies team. They are absolutely red hot in this month of June. They are 15-3 in the month, including a 9-game winning streak to start off the month, and they haven't been doing it just against some scrub teams. Now, it has been, mostly scrub teams, but they've still had some pretty darn good teams on the way. They had the Giants, which they started the series, the month off. They swept Milwaukee in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a really, really good team. I'm not sure if they're leading the division, but they're definitely way up there. And they've gotten themselves to above 500. They were below 500 when the Rangers played them, and they were just in a bad way. But they're in a much better way, and their offense is absolutely thriving right now. They are coming off of a loss against the Nationals. They had a 4-game series. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excuse me. 5-game series. They had a doubleheader on Friday. I'm just not used to seeing that. That's so many games against the same exact team. But they have not had an off day in a while until most recently today. They needed that off day. But still, they are a really, really good team that is absolutely clicking on all cylinders right now. The pitching matchups in this one are going to be honestly fantastic. I am so looking forward to them. It's going to be Martin Perez versus old friend Kyle Gibson. That one is going to be really, really interesting, especially for Rangers fans. Then on Wednesday, we have John Gray versus Zach Wheeler, the two thought of aces of their staff before the season, and so far have been kind of number 2 on their staffs so far. Aaron Nola has been absolutely electric for them. Well, actually, you know what? Zach Wheeler has been a little bit better, but Aaron Nola has also been really good. The Rangers are missing him. Thankfully, they just get Gibson and Wheeler. They get to miss Ranger Suarez, who has kind of fallen back down to earth after the, I think, sub-1 ERA that he had last year. The Rangers got to him and swept them the last time they faced them, but this team is not that same club that was struggling so badly. Gene Segura right now is on the 60-day IL for them, so that is the main injury that they are dealing with. Some other injuries to some of the bottom guys in the lineup, but the rest of the guys in their lineup have been absolutely crushing it. Reese Hoskins at first base has been crushing it. JT Realmuto has found a little bit of his form. He's still kind of underperforming what you would expect from one of the best offensive catchers in baseball. But yeah, Kyle Schwarber is absolutely mashing with 18 homers, and Bryce Harper leads position players on this team with 2.7 WAR, and he's a DH. He has literally no defensive value, but he is still providing a crap ton of offensive value. Has an OPS over 1,000, on base 391, slugging 622 with 15 homers and 21 doubles. He's also got 8 stolen bases. The Bryce Harper, who can't spell his own first name right, is doing pretty darn good at baseball. He's 29 years old. He's been in the big leagues for a decade. I just saw a post that was talking about was like the 10-year anniversary of the clown question, bro. I don't know if you know what that is, but if you do, then you're probably old like me, or, you know, not some young spring chicken. If you don't know what the clown question is, you can go look it up. It won't provide the same value. The memes back in 2012 were so much easier. Just put a clown wig on Bryce Harper. He says that's a clown question, repeating whoever in the background was saying it. And it's like, that was it. That was the hilarious joke of our time from back then. But it's just kind of wild to put in that context how long he's been in the big leagues. And yeah, just absolutely thriving this year. The Rangers, however, have not taken advantage of a kind of weaker schedule. Well, for the most part, it's been a weaker schedule in the month of June. And I thought this was a month where the Rangers would build off of this fantastic month of May. After an awful April, they started having all these close wins against these pretty darn good teams, and some close losses as well. The Rangers have been filled with close losses in the month of June. They lost their final 2 games to Tampa Bay. They had a chance to go on and sweep. They won the first 2, but they were so close in both those games. A 1-run loss on the first and a 2-run loss on the second. Another 1-run loss to start off the series against Seattle, which they lost against a scuffling team. Both those were 1-run losses in Seattle. They could have won that series. They could have swept that series, but they didn't. Then they move on to Cleveland. Another series that the Rangers probably should have won. Some real missed opportunities, including in that doubleheader and the next game where they got completely shut out and waxed. I mean, that'll happen once or twice, but Cleveland was a scuffling team. They were sub 500 when the Rangers played them. Now they're in a playoff spot, and the Rangers failed to take advantage there. The only series that they've won this month is against the White Sox, which is kind of confusing because they should have lost both the games that they won. They should have lost both of those games, but they ended up pulling out both of those in extra innings. Then they had some momentum. They go and they beat Houston in a great win to start that series, and then absolutely just poop away the Tuesday loss and a chance to win that series, and then get shellacked in the third game, which they didn't really have a chance in, but they still could have won that series. And then after winning a clutch game on the first game of this series in Detroit, and then putting down the hammer on Friday, they just POA, the final 2 games of this series. They have not been good in June, 7-11 record, and they have what is going to be their probably second toughest series of this month against the Phillies, who are red hot and were supposed to be a playoff team and probably might end up there and are just looking like absolute world beaters on a team that went all offense, no defense. Their all offense is all offensing right now. And the Rangers are real lucky that they have their 2 best starters on the mound for these 2 games. But the Phillies starting pitchers in this series have also been pretty darn good. Kyle Gibson has been kind of hit and miss, but when he's on, the Rangers know firsthand how good he can be. So the Rangers need to take advantage and at least split this series, because the final 6 games of their month of June are ones they absolutely should win, because things are going to get a little bit harder when they move on to the month of July. The final 6 games of this month, 3 at home against the Nationals, who are bad, bottom feeders, and the Rangers need to absolutely pound. And then 3 games at Kansas City, who are also one of the worst teams in the entirety of Major League Baseball this year, who the Rangers absolutely need to take care of in their final series of June. Then they face off against the Mets in New York. That they might get swept. They very well easily could get swept because the Mets are one of the best teams in baseball. And then they're also going to face Minnesota early on in the month of July. It's going to be a tough month of July. Granted, those games are at least at home, but Minnesota is no pushover team. Granted, towards the end of this season, like this is where your medal is made. You gotta take advantage in the month of June. These Rangers players who want to be all-stars, they're gonna have to take advantage in the month of June and have hot months. Some of them are heating up a little bit faster than others. Some of them not so much. But it's been a tough month of June, and the Rangers haven't nearly been up to expectations that they set for themselves with that red-hot month of May. They've still got time to turn it around. If they somehow sweep this series against Philadelphia, they could cascade what would end up being an 8-game winning streak if they go ahead and sweep those bottom feeder teams that they are about to face in the Nationals and Kansas City over the next 6 games and finish out this month with a winning record in June. They need to at least have a winning record in the month of June. They've got, 8 games left, and they're 4 games behind 500. So they can basically only lose, 2 or 3 games? Maybe 2? I don't know. My math is off. I'm asking myself to do math on the fly, which is never a good thing and never turns out well. But this is a huge series for the Rangers. They need to take at least 1. Taking 2 would be huge. But they really, really need to take advantage of those final 2 series in the month of June. Otherwise, they are going to have to sell off these players at the deadline. They are going to have to look at some of the other guys to sell off and what they're going to do to fix this offense and a little bit of this starting rotation, which for the most part has been quite problematic. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. Thank y'all so much for listening, making it your first another day. For your next listen, go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Paul Francis Sullivan, please just call him Sully. He gives his unique perspective on the major leagues, both past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back tomorrow talking about this first game of the series, seeing how these 2 Ranger greats do in Martin Perez and Kyle Gibson, and talking about a huge, huge game for this Texas Rangers club. Thank y'all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.